In this session, we'll see what is NETCONF, why do we need it, what are NETCONF features, how to configure it and verify it. Also, we will see what is Restconf, why do we need it, what are the Restconf features, and how to configure and verify Restconf. NETCONF is a standard protocol defined in several RFCs. It is part of the IETF efforts to standardize automation. It uses XML, it uses a Yang data model, it uses a secure transport protocol such as Secure Shell or TLS. It is client-server based. It makes heavy use of remote procedure calls. There are several configuration management features within NETCONF. It provides data stores. It is transactional. We can lock a data stores. We can roll back a data store configuration, and it can perform notifications. So why do we need NETCONF? Nowadays, it is heavily used to perform configuration management. We can install, push, add new configurations, change, edit, manipulate existing configuration, or delete or remove configurations. In summary, we can automate configuration deployments. The NETCONF standard talks about several layers. We have the transport layer that talks about how NETCONF uses a transport protocol to provide security, the messages layer that defines the usage of remote procedure calls, the operations layer that defines methods that we can use to interact with a remote device, and the contents layers that separates configurations from notifications. Let's talk about NETCONF features in detail. First of all, we have XML. XML stands for Extensible Markup Language. It is a language that has been available for programmers for several decades now. Some programmers don't like it because it can become too verbose. It is an open standard. It is based on tags. We start a tag with this combination and ending with this combination. It is structured so tags can be nested. NETCONF uses Yang as well. Yang is a data modeling language that models resources that exist within devices, separating configuration from state data. For instance, we can separate the interface configuration from the state of the interface, whether it is up or down. Yang stands for yet another next generation. It determines the scope and kind of functions that can be performed by NETCONF and Restconf APIs. Devices can offer several Yang models, for instance, the native or vendor Yang model, IETF, and OpenConfig Yang models. NETCONF is a client-server protocol where the server is the NETCONF agent that is running in the remote device. So we'll have several servers, whereas the client is the NETCONF application that may be as simple as a script that we're going to use in order to manage remote devices. NETCONF relies on another protocol in order to provide secure transport. Most of the times we are going to use Secure Shell. Secure Shell in this case uses this port. So we need to establish a Secure Shell session before moving on with the NETCONF session. NETCONF is based on sessions. Once we are done authenticating with the Secure Shell, we are going to start the NETCONF session. Servers should provide at least one session. Sessions may be closed gracefully or forced to get terminated. When a session is established, hellos are going to be exchanged with a list of capabilities, and a session ID is provided by the server. We're going to talk about capabilities later on. Once we have a session with a session ID, we can start sending remote procedure calls to a remote device. A remote procedure call will include a message ID, a namespace dictated by Yang, target data stored, and an operation. We have these operations available: get config, edit config, copy config, delete config, lock, unlock, and close sessions. The response will be a remote procedure call reply that may be either OK or RPC error. Just a note here, we can make use of a feature that is known as candidate data store, where we can make changes on this candidate data store, and when we are ready, we can commit those changes into a running data store. A running data store contains the current operational configuration. Other data stores may exist depending on the destination device. Given NETCONF is both multi-user and transactional, we may end up in the case where several users are connected at the same time in the same device and they want to work with the same data store. For those cases, we may lock a data store, work with it, change it, commit the changes, and after that, we may unlock the data store. NETCONF supports notifications as well. In order to start receiving a particular notification, we must subscribe to it. So we were going to send a remote procedure call subscribing to this particular notification. If we receive a remote procedure call reply as OK, eventually we will receive a notification when a certain event happens. Final note here, remember that we said that when two NETCONF devices connect to each other and start a session, they will exchange capabilities. These are examples of the capabilities that they may exchange to each other. For instance, writable running, that says that one device permits direct writes to the running data store. For instance, they may exchange whether they support the candidate data store or not, and so on. Let's compare NETCONF with SNMP. Regarding the secure transport, NETCONF relies on secure shell or TLS, which is good. SNMP has only built-in security in version 3, none in version 1 or 2C. Regarding the modeling language, NETCONF uses Yang and SNMP uses SMI. Both are standards publicly available out there. Regarding the data format to exchange information, NETCONF uses a standard language such as XML. SNMP does not. Regarding state data polling, we have been doing that for SNMP for decades, so it is good, and with NETCONF it is good as well. Regarding configuration management, yes, we can do it with NETCONF, and it is really easy. With SNMP, we can do it, but it is difficult. Regarding transactional support for configurations, such as locking, committing, and rollbacking configurations, yes, we can do it with NETCONF. This is built in the protocol, whereas with SNMP, we cannot do it. We will rely on an external software to do that. Regarding supporting notifications, NETCONF, yes, can do it with subscriptions, whereas with SNMP, yes, we can do it with alerts and informs. Regarding the tools available, we don't really have several tools for NETCONF, whereas with SNMP, we have a lot of them. Regarding support in devices, SNMP has almost universal support, whereas in NETCONF, it is only available on recent devices. Before configuring NETCONF, we will need a privileged 15 user available. We will need secure shell in place. Then we will need to issue this command. This is the most important command for NETCONF. We will need to memorize it. Then we can customize NETCONF as the amount of time that the user may log a data store, how many simultaneous sessions are we willing to provide, the maximum size of an incoming remote procedure call that we are willing to accept, an access control list for incoming sessions. We can enable a candidate data stores. We can reduce the amount of time that NETCONF uses in order to synchronize configuration with this command, and we can further secure and authenticate and authorize NETCONF with these commands. And there are several validation NETCONF commands. For instance, we can see the running configuration in XML format. We can know the amount of data stores that we have available, the sessions that we have provided with the tile. We can debug NETCONF. We can gather the NETCONF statistics regarding the amount of remote procedure calls, sessions, and hellos that we have exchanged, the start time of NETCONF, and we can assess the state of the processes that support NETCONF with this command. What is Restconf? Restconf stands for Representational State Transfer Configuration Protocol. The official definition will be Restconf is a programmatic interface to access configuration data, state data, events, execute remote procedure call operations defined in the Yang model. So now really, what is Restconf in plain terms? It is a programmatic tool that is an automation mechanism that supports HTTP as the transport. HTTPS will be recommended. It supports both XML and JSON. It can exchange remote procedure calls with NETCONF servers where URLs are mapped into Yang resources. However, Restconf is a tool that we can use with any server that supports a RESTful API, not only with NETCONF servers. So why will we use Restconf if we already have NETCONF? It is just an alternative protocol to NETCONF that supports JSON and where more tools are available since it's based on HTTP. We have web tools, web client libraries, and so on. Restconf supports both XML and JSON. We have talked about XML previously. JSON is a JavaScript object notation, which is a standard language. Based on attributes and values, you will be able to identify JSON data because it opens and closes with these curly brackets. Since Restconf is an HTTP tool, we can use all the available HTTP methods. For instance, we can use the post method to create data, the get methods to read data, the put method to replace or overwrite data, the patch method in order to partially modify data, or the delete method in order to delete data. This makes Restconf to qualify as a CRUD tool. And within all the headers that we need to build for Restconf when working with NETCONF servers, we will have to always make sure that the accept header is set to either application Yang data XML or application Yang data plus JSON, depending on whether we are using XML or JSON in our remote procedure call. Given Restconf is based on HTTP, we need to learn how to build the universal resource indicators in order to work with resources on the remote device. Now, we will start with the protocol, then the IP address of the remote device, then we will include Restconf and data, and the rest of the universal resource indicator will depend on the Yang model that we are going to work with. For the native Yang model, we are going to use this format. For the IETF Yang model, we are going to use this format. And for the OpenConfig Yang model, we are going to use this format. Let's compare NETCONF with Restconf. Regarding the transport protocol, NETCONF may use Secure Shell or TLS. Restconf may use HTTPS, which is the recommended protocol. For the data format, NETCONF uses XML. Many programmers don't like XML, whereas Restconf can use XML or JSON. Regarding the accessing resources based on the Yang model, both protocols will use Yang. And regarding whether we have available tools or not, for NETCONF we don't really have many available tools, whereas for Restconf we have several tools out there, given Restconf is based on HTTP. Now finally, there is an important detail here. Given Restconf is based on HTTP, the nature of HTTP is transactional. This means that we are going to connect to the HTTP server and we are going to tear down that connection as soon as possible. We cannot stay there for a long time as we can do with secure shell sessions. So Restconf have an stateless nature, whereas NETCONF has an stateful nature. This means that with NETCONF we can perform locking on data stores and rollbacks and so on, whereas with Restconf we cannot do that. A final note here, there is a draft that was released on December 2025 and that establishes that both NETCONF and Restconf have access to a new kind of data stores that are known as private candidate data stores. Before configuring Restconf, we will need to enable our HTTP secure server. So we will use this command. Remember that internally this web server is known as Nginx. Then we will enable Restconf with this command. Now, in order to verify Restconf, we could use this command, show platform software giant management process, in order to check on the processes that are supporting Restconf. Remember that Nginx is the name that is used internally for the Cisco web server.